It's very possible that for many of you the best console is the one of that's already sitting in your pocket, and that's your personal phone. Yes, your phone can be the simplest replacement for almost any handheld console when it comes to retro gaming and more. Basically, all you really need for simple, comfortable retro gaming is an Android device and a gamepad. Some people already do exactly that. They just connect a controller to their phone and play their favorite games. It saves money and you don't need to buy an extra gaming device. And a controller like this can cost as little as $5 to $10, which is more than enough for comfortable gaming. For testing, I decided to use this smartphone, the Nothing Phone 3A Lite. In my opinion, this is currently the best budget smartphone in terms of price to performance. It's definitely not a gaming phone, but if it can handle most retro games, then your more expensive and more powerful smartphone should work perfectly for gaming as well. It comes with a great 120Hz OLED display with a good PWM level, 3 cameras, although honestly one would have been enough for me, and a modern design. Overall, it's a real well-balanced device. As for the price, I bought it on AliExpress for €230 with free shipping. By the way, it also has a twin brother, the CMF Phone 2 Pro. It has almost exactly the same specs, but with a plastic back instead of glass, and a telephoto camera instead of the macro lens. Other than that, they're basically identical. The package is pretty standard for a budget smartphone. Inside you get a USB-C charging cable and a protective case. As for the operating system, it runs Android 16 with the Nothing OS 4 interface. The design of this UI is really nice and well thought out. The interface looks clean, modern and stylish. The AMOLED display has a 6.77-inch diagonal and symmetrical bezels. As I mentioned earlier, it has a good PWM level, so my eyes don't get nearly as tired using it compared to something like the Mangmi Pocket Max. Overall, by most standards, this is basically a flagship level display, which is very important for gaming. But just as important, or actually even more important, is the processor. This phone uses the Dimensity 7300 Pro. It's an 8-core budget processor from MediaTek. Yes, it's definitely not the most powerful chip out there, but for retro gaming up to the PlayStation 2 level, I'm pretty sure it should be more than enough. At the same time, this is still a full smartphone with dual SIM support, 3 cameras and NFC, not just an Android gaming console. You can play games, make calls and pay for purchases, which is extremely important for a budget phone. For memory, it comes with 8GB of LPDDR4X RAM and 256GB of internal storage, using the UFS 2.2 standard. There is also support for microSD cards. As for the rest of the specs, here they are on screen: Wi-Fi 6, Bluetooth 5.4, a 5000 mAh battery, IP54 splash resistance, and so on. I ran a few benchmarks, and here are the results I got. You can compare them with budget handheld consoles from Mangmi and Aeneo. But benchmarks are just numbers. What's really interesting is the real gaming experience. We'll talk about that a little later. And before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. It's super important for promoting both the video and the channel. Also, don't forget to click the bell icon so you won't miss any new videos. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can hit the hype button. It helps push the video to new audiences and brings even more people into our community. Now let's talk about the cameras. Honestly, cameras aren't a huge factor for me when it comes to phones. But if you're buying a budget smartphone, you probably still wanted to take decent photos. The Nothing phone has 3 camera modules, a 50-megapixel wide camera and an 8-megapixel ultra-wide camera. The main camera is actually quite good for this price. I'm pretty satisfied with the colors and the level of detail, although there is no optical stabilization. so not every shot comes out perfect. The ultra-wide camera is pretty average, but at least it's there. You can really only use it during the day because it struggles in low light. And the third module, a 2-megapixel macro lens, is completely useless in my opinion. I honestly don't understand why it's here, probably because buyers of budget smartphones want to see 3 cameras, like on an iPhone Pro. That's the only explanation I can think of. The front camera is 16 megapixels and performs quite well both outdoors and indoors. As for video, the phone can record in 4K at 30 frames per second or Full HD at 60 frames per second. Overall, it's pretty decent. And now let's move on to the gaming test and see what the Nothing Phone 3A Lite is actually capable of and whether it can replace a handheld gaming console. To run the games, I'm using my standard set of apps and emulators. You can find the full list of these programs on my Telegram channel using the link in the description box. Let's start with the simplest retro games, the ones from NES. I usually use RetroArch for this, and as you can see, everything runs perfectly. The same goes for Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games. I think almost any smartphone can handle these systems because the games are not very demanding. And honestly, this library alone is already enough to spend hours enjoying some nostalgia. But let's not stop there. PlayStation games also run great. You might notice the black bars on the sides, because these games were originally designed for a 4:3 aspect ratio. So let's move on and test some PlayStation portable games. And as you can see, even the most demanding titles run perfectly with higher graphic settings. I'm sure many people would love to replay games like God of War or GTA Vice City Stories. Moving on, GameCube games are more demanding, and not every handheld console can handle them, but this budget smartphone manages the task surprisingly well. And that means you get access to a huge library of great games. The only one problem is finding enough time to play them all. PlayStation 2 games are a little more demanding, but even here the smartphone performs confidently. If you notice a drop in frames per second, you can slightly lower the graphic settings or the resolution to get smoother and more stable gameplay. But overall, I was really impressed with the results. Next, I decided to test some Nintendo Switch games. Since the processor here is not exactly high-end, the games run with slightly reduced graphics settings. I tried different graphics drivers, but unfortunately that did not improve the results. The Legend of Zelda does launch, but it is not really playable. So, in general, you should think of Nintendo Switch games more as an extra feature or a nice bonus on top of everything this budget phone can already do. On more expensive smartphones with more powerful Snapdragon processors, I'm sure the results would be much better. I also tested the Game Hub application. From my entire Steam library, I was only able to launch this one game. The others simply freeze and never finish loading. However, I was able to run a large number of native Android games, and that's actually amazing, because recently many games have been released directly from smartphones. There are even mods designs for weaker processors that allow you to play older games, and honestly, this alone can already make you forget about buying a separate handheld console and simply enjoy gaming right on your phone. By the way, I played for several hours, and during that time the phone did not heat up very much. It became slightly warm, but never hot, and the games continued running smoothly without dropping FPS. So you can safely buy almost any mobile controller, even one without built-in cooling. The phone is still comfortable to hold and use even after a long gaming session. So what can I say in the end? In my opinion, this is one of the best budget Android smartphones right now. It has a beautiful design, a very pleasant interface, good battery life, and everything you need for everyday use, from cameras to NFC for contactless payments. It also has a great 120Hz display. I wish it were IPS, but the bezels are thin and symmetrical, which still makes the screen look excellent. In many ways, it feels like a much more expensive smartphone, but at a reasonable price. And when it comes to gaming, everything is also very solid. Nintendo, Game Boy and PlayStation Portable games all run perfectly, which will satisfy most retro gaming fans. Even PlayStation 2 and GameCube games run quite well. And if that's still not enough for you, some Nintendo Switch games can also run. Not all of them, of course, but there is still a few interesting titles. It's a pretty nice bonus. And we should not forget about Android games either. With a smartphone like this, you get access to a huge library of both retro game ports and games from Google Play. So why did I decide to explore mobile gaming specifically with this phone? The answer is very simple. First, it is one of the most popular smartphones in the budget segment. People who follow new tech releases often choose it instead of just buying the first phone they see in a store. Second, I thought that if this phone can pass my gaming test, then your more expensive smartphone will most likely handle even heavier titles, and that can help you make a more rational decision about whether you really need to buy a separate handheld console. In fact, today you can even find more powerful smartphones for around 250 euros. For example, Motorola Edge 50 Fusion, Poco X7 Pro, Poco F6, or even Samsung Galaxy S22 or Redmi K50 with flagship Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processors. All of them will perform better in games, but personally I like the design of the Nothing phone more. In today's reality, not everyone has an extra $200 or $300 to spend on a handheld console, but many people still want to play games, and I completely understand that. So why not just use the phone you already have? It's a very logical solution, and I think at least for the beginning this scenario makes a lot of sense. But I am definitely not trying to convince you not to buy a retro handheld console. On the contrary, I simply want to show that you have a choice and an alternative. And if you do decide to buy a console, make sure to subscribe to the channel and check out my reviews. There is a good chance I already have a video about the console you're interested in. And if you've been looking for a good and affordable smartphone with all the essential features, then without hesitation I recommend the Nothing Phone 3A Lite or the CMF Phone 2 Pro. Just choose the one you like more in terms of design and price. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I wish you pleasant nostalgia and successful completion of your favorite games.